Hey, Ash from BeingSwenglish here. And Facebook groups. I don't know why I join some of these groups because all they do is frustrate me and sadden me and irritate me, actually. Now, when you're looking to move abroad, regardless of where it might be, a lot of people look at Facebook groups of other immigrants or expats, as they call them, living in that country. And there are a number of these on Facebook. So, for example, one of them is Brits in Sweden, there's expats in Malmö, etc. And there's some really useful posts in there. You know, people ask for help and advice, and people give that help and advice very, very quickly. But there are also a ton of incredibly negative and, I'm sorry to say it, but quite unpleasant people in these groups as well. The sort of people that were unhappy in the UK, they're unhappy in Ireland, in Scotland, wherever they were in the world. Or outside of Europe, you know, America, Canada, etc., Australia. They've then moved to another country, hating their country of origin. You know, they despise where they came from, they despise the people there. And now they've brought that hate and anger and frustration with them to Sweden. And they just, you know, they criticize this country, they criticize the people. And I just think it's a real shame to bring that kind of misery with you. You know, I can understand people sometimes need to just escape their country of origin. They just need to get out. But there does seem to be a high proportion of that kind of character and personality in some of these groups where they literally have run away and they're depressed, they're sad, they're lonely. I'm not persecuting people with mental issues or depression at all. It's sad if they have, you know, if people have those challenges and they need to see people and speak to people and therapists and counselors and seek help either in their origin country or in Sweden, because the help and support is there. But it's the people who don't think they need the help. They're just angry, unhappy people. They don't accept that they are angry and unhappy and aggressive to other people. And it does seem to be a common topic in these groups. Those sort of people don't seek help because they don't think they need it. And that negativity really rubs off in these groups. I have to say a majority of these groups are populated with people like this. And I've left, and many of my friends, English and Swedish friends, have left a number of these groups because of feeling dragged down by these kind of people. Now, the big danger here is when you are looking to move, you're looking at these groups to get an understanding of the area you might live in, or what the country is like, or what challenges other immigrants have. And this can give you a really sour taste. You know, looking at some of the posts in these groups, you could really be put off moving to Sweden as a country. You could be put off moving to Denmark or wherever, you know, you're planning to go because of some of these just bitter and hateful people in these groups. Now, don't ever let these groups give you an accurate reflection of Sweden, because they really are not an accurate representation of Sweden. They are a representation of somebody's views, and someone's views are derived by their experiences in life, their education, their intelligence, their experiences that they've had personally long before Sweden, which gives them perhaps prejudices or, you know, a way of dealing with things in life. So it's you know, it's a real challenging one. Now, it's a little bit, these groups are generally quite badly managed as well. Discussions get out of control. The moderators, the admins of these groups normally have a very unbiased view as well, and they will side with one side of the hate or the other. But generally, it seems to not be the other. And they seem to let these kind of hateful comments flow and run without any moderation or any consideration of the damage that these kind of comments, incorrect and inaccurate comments, make on a country. Now, if you think about it this way, if me and one of these hateful people go to exactly the same restaurant, we eat exactly the same food, we drink the same wine from the same wine glass, we have the same waiter, and we go home, and somebody asks us, what did you think of that restaurant? I might love it. The other person might hate it. The other person might not like that type of cuisine. They might not like wine. Their past experience with wine might have been a bad one, so they just hate wine entirely. The point being that Sweden is that restaurant, and I've eaten in that restaurant and I thought it was great, and I still think it's a great restaurant. This metaphor is going too far, isn't it? Or is it a simile? Whereas the other person will just be full of hate and they'll, oh, I hate it. Nah. Just because of their previous life experience that has led them to that conclusion. And that's fine. We're all allowed to think differently. But there has to be some consideration. I love Sweden, but I appreciate that other people don't love it. But those people that don't love it don't seem to appreciate that many people, the majority, do love it. In their opinion, it's a bad place. It's not that it's their opinion that it's a bad place. They just think it's a bad place. And anybody saying anything otherwise is just wrong. These groups are so negative. They're so full of toxicity. And that's why I started the Being Swenglish group, which is in the link in the video description below. It's a friendly place. People there are positive, happy. I'm not saying we can't talk about problems there. You can. But the people that talk about their problems in that group talk about them constructively and maturely with adults, as adults, and with consideration for other people. And, they're not passive aggressive and angry. And that's the kind of atmosphere I want. And the group is growing really quickly. So please join it if you're looking for a change. But anyway, let's talk about the background here. Any move to a new country is going to have its challenges. Of course it is. You've got different cultures, different people, different ways of life. These people who are struggling to make friends in Sweden, their expectation seems to be that everyone should change for them, that everybody should come to them and say, hello, would you like to be my friend? That's just not how it works in life. It's up to you to make that proactive call sometimes. People won't just come up to you and say, do you want to be my friend, please? That's just not how life works. But so many of these people expect people to come to them. And it does seem to vary depending on where you're actually from. I have noticed that Brits seem to have less of these challenges than other people. Americans seem to really struggle. I've noticed they seem to struggle a lot. Americans, I'm not going to stereotype because that's what I'm criticizing about these negative people, but the Americans that I know in my experience are normally quite loud, big people, not big physically, but big personalities. And, they speak very quickly. And it can be quite overwhelming for someone whose native language isn't English. But different cultures find a different experience here. And I can understand that because the shift from their culture to Swedish culture is quite radically different. Now, moving between European countries, it's, I guess, a fairly smooth transition in some respects, maybe not Eastern Europe, where, things are a little bit more blunt and a bit more straight there. But certainly between England and Sweden, it's not a massive leap. And perhaps that's why, between the United Kingdom and Sweden, that's perhaps why Brits don't struggle so much. But I just see these sweeping, bigoted, invalid generalizations about an entire culture of people. And I'm just so bored of seeing that. Now, the other thing that I noticed as well in these expat groups, there are lots of Swedish people in these groups as well. And they tend to be Swedish people who have lived abroad. Maybe they join these expat groups because when they come back, they find that the international community is more their type now. That, the fact that they left Sweden in the first place perhaps is because they wanted to explore the rest of the world, which is great. But some of these Swedish people agree with these negative influences. They say, I'm Swedish, so I must be right. And Swedish people are not very friendly in general. And, Swedes do socially struggle with people. Well, I'm sorry, but just because you're Swedish, that doesn't make you an expert on Swedish social interaction and Swedish culture. I'm British, I'm English. That doesn't make me an expert on English behavior, English culture. Some people might say all English people are drunk and they all talk, they all watch Time Team. That would be an invalid generalization. But, as an English person, that might be my observation. But it's important when you express an opinion to make very clear that that is your opinion. It's not a fact. But these Swedes wade into these discussions, claiming to be an expert because they're Swedish. But I know Swedes who are reserved. I know Swedes who are not reserved. The majority, I would say, are not reserved. That's my experience, though. Very frustrating. There's no baseline in culture. Some will say that Northerners in England are more friendly than Southerners. Some will say Southerners are more friendly than Northerners. It just depends on your life experiences, basically. Now, the reasons, let's think about this. The reasons that you're not making friends in Sweden. Some say that it helps if you have a Swedish partner. Well, it didn't make any difference for me. I go out often on my own. I've always made my own Swedish friends separate away from my partner. It's never made any difference in the slightest. And my Swedish friends that I have are not shared mutual friends. They're my friends that I've made. So, a partner might help to get you out into Sweden, but that's not necessarily having a Swedish partner. Just having a relationship in general might help you with that confidence boost to get out there. The other thing is language. Now, language in Sweden really is not a barrier. Everybody here speaks English to varying degrees, though. The important thing to remember is not all Swedes speak English comfortably. They speak it, but they don't feel comfortable enough to speak it socially. So that can be a barrier, but it's not a major barrier. And my Swedish, jag kan inte tala svenska duktig. But that has, men det har inte slutat mig från bli nya vänner med svenska människor. Was that good? It's not stopped me from making friends with Swedish people, basically, at all. They laugh at my Swedish. They find it entertaining. But most Swedes say to me, when I apologize for speaking Swedish, they say, don't worry, we like speaking Swedish. We don't really get to speak it that often. So, that's not a big problem. You find that as well, they basically, judging the experience that you have on the entire Sweden can create prejudices as well. That's not healthy. And it's important that you step back sometimes and consider that it's just your experience and your opinion. It doesn't make it a fact. So drop those prejudices and preconceptions you have about, Sweden that you formed so far, and just treat every new opportunity as a new opportunity without those prejudices, without those stereotypical ideas that you have in your head. That's really, really important. Ultimately, appearance. Now, Sweden is stereotypically, if you look at any imagery of Sweden, past imagery at least, blonde, blue eyes. Now I live in a very white area here in Sweden, where I am. If I go to the swimming pool, it's, I'm like the only guy there that's a little bit, that's not pale white skinned. I'm a bit brown, got blue eyes, got brown eyes, brown hair. But, and for some Swedes, I guess we do look different, but that's not a blocker in any respect. And I've never, ever felt when talking to a new Swede that I want to make friends with, that my difference of appearance has made any difference at all. I guess, this is, if you live in an area like I do, a very, white area, then, there's the consideration that, yeah, I am different. I don't look like everybody else here. But, it's really, really not a big issue. It's not a blocker. And I guess look at it this way. Imagine if you went to a nudist beach and everyone else is nude and there's one person with clothes on. That person's going to stand out. They're going to look a bit different. But you know what? This is a benefit. It's a positive. Not a nudist beach. I don't think I've ever been to one. But it can be an advantage because I do look different. And I've not found that plays against me here. I've actually found that people, in some respects, are interested because they look at me. I don't look British. I don't look English. When I speak English, they're like, oh, where are you from? That's interesting. They often think I'm Australian. I don't know why. Maybe I'll sound a little bit Australian, mate. But anyway, appearance, don't think about it. Don't worry about it. Use it as an opportunity to break the ice in a way. I'm actually a quarter Jamaican, by the way. That's why I'm a little bit brown. But I've been to a swimming pool where I was the only darker skinned guy in that entire swimming place, and I got chatting to people randomly, sat in the hot tub, whilst kids were away playing, and so it's absolutely really, really not an issue. Now, I see these comments in these groups, and some of them are genuinely sad. The people I talked about earlier that, they're lonely, they're depressed, and they really, really need to seek help for that, seek counseling, see therapists, and really get those issues resolved, because that's really sad to read. And, I genuinely believe that in their minds, they say they've tried lots of things to make friends here. And I believe they have tried everything. But, when you actually question into, to try and politely offer some advice. So, have you tried this? Have you been out to a bar on your own, a cafe? and just, sit there, watch the world go by. If somebody comes around that looks talkable, then maybe just strike up a conversation with them. But, they reply on, I'm too shy to do that. I'm too shy to go out on my own and sit in a bar or in a cafe. So, these stories that I read are sad, but then there are some which are incredibly angry, arrogant, furious, as if they're complaining in a restaurant for bad service. And it's those individuals that I'm just shocked by. These are the reasons that drive other people out of these groups. These are the reasons that people think twice before moving to Sweden. Let's just read some of these comments, right? So an Australian lady posted asking about integration, basically. She said that she was struggling a bit. Many responded. A Bulgarian lady said, no integration at all, no interest from nobody to know me better or make connections. An African lady said, I consider myself to be friendly and easy to get along with. However, living in Sweden for 12 years, I do not have a single Swedish friend. 12 years. American lady, we lived near Malmö when we first moved here and it felt cold and unwelcoming. Anytime I tried to do anything to make friends, it failed. I lived in Malmö for years and we had an apartment there for years before that. And I've never, ever thought of Malmö as a cold and unfriendly place. It genuinely isn't. It's so bohemian, main parts of it. It's so relaxed and chilled and full of cool people. An Indian lady, it's 5 years for me here and I'm a different person now. I don't go to university or have children, hence there aren't any opportunities to talk to Swedes. You don't need to go to university or have children to talk to people. This comes back to my point about solutions. There are so many ways around this to consider a different way. We'll talk about that in a minute. A Finnish guy, not really any friends. The only locals I know are from work. My impression is that Swedes seem to be rather hostile and racist towards all foreigners, despite the occasionally friendly face that they put up. So that's generalizing Swedish people as racists and fake, suggesting that they pretend to have a friendly face but actually aren't. That's from a Finnish guy. That's a neighboring Nordic country. There's an American lady. I've lost all interest in integrating. I'll never be accepted as a Swede. So for my own mental health, I've stopped trying. I replied to this lady really politely. And I said, this is sad to hear. Have you considered, that you're putting too much pressure on yourself to be accepted as a Swede? Because that's not our goal. Our goal is to be accepted as a person, to just be friends with somebody, to talk to people. And if you're trying to be a Swede, then you're putting undue pressure on yourself. And that, I can understand how that could push you over the edge. And she replied so passive aggressively and angrily to me, just saying, I don't need advice. I didn't come to this post in this discussion group for advice or replies. A discussion group on Facebook where you discuss things. But that reflects the character, doesn't it? Somebody who's amicable, nice and friendly would not respond to somebody brand new like that, who's only trying to help, to offer some advice when someone's clearly, all I was trying to do is relieve pressure there. An American lady, now this is the killer. I was shocked by this. I'll read out the whole comment. I know this is a long video, but this is her reply. Absolutely 100% no, not even one Swedish friend. I've lived here 11 plus years. Professional international job, super friendly. Not one single Swedish friends with full stops between them. Swedes tend to be very insular and keep within their circle, impossible to break in or be part of. The Swedes never accept you even if you are fluent in Swedish, so why make the effort? They don't like immigrants, people from the US, EU or anywhere else, period. In the US, we would call them bigots, and they are. Look at their press, so morally superior to every country. From an American, this is. So willing to inform us how to behave and think. Swedes all speak English fluently and enjoy trotting out another superior trait. We are better than you, etc., etc. Oh, just reading that again infuriates me. Now, that's the first post I've seen from this lady. It was her first comment in response to integration question. I don't mean to sound awful, but would you want to be friends with somebody like that? With somebody with such invalid and horrible toxicity, stereotyping, generalization sweeping across the entire Swedish culture, which, things... I was honestly shocked when I read that. And when I replied to that, just saying, I really think you should reread what you've written there, she just replied with a tirade of abuse and unfriendly responses which weren't justified. And, people liked her comment. I honestly think those people that liked that comment should feel quite ashamed, because that's disgusting. And I really wonder, by the way, she finished this her comment by writing, by the way, me and my husband, who are both American, still live in Sweden and we still love Sweden. But they hate the people here who are racist, bigots, and superior and fake, apparently. Now, imagine reading that when you're thinking of moving to Sweden. Imagine you're about to move to Sweden, make a life milestone commitment, and you read that. Now, one observation I did make, it was largely females replying to this comment. Now, that could just be due to the makeup of the Facebook group being largely female, or females being more willing to share, perhaps, I don't know, to share their opinion. But I did wonder, is it because women struggle perhaps more with making friends here because they're only approaching women? One lady, I raised this as possibly a consideration. One woman replied to say that it's because many women feel that men can't be friends with women because men just want to sleep with them or assault them, which I find so depressing. We're not all like that, and women can be a danger to men. In a minority, I agree, but still the point stands that if you go through life thinking that all men want to sleep with you or assault you, then you're going to live a life of paranoia. I know lots of female Swedes who are friends with more men than they are with women. And, I wonder if that's why some of these ladies are struggling to make friends, because they're only trying to make friends with women. Whereas men like me, I've got lots of Swedish friends, female friends here who are lovely, and we get on really well. Maybe that's one thing, I don't know. But anyway, there were lots of good comments as well. There was a British guy who said, found it really easy, no issues, challenges at all. Maybe it's because we're British. Canadian woman said, I felt it to be fairly seamless. An Australian woman said, I also quickly felt integrated. So let's talk about the solutions. Now, I have to preface this by saying I'm not a psychologist or a therapist, right? This is not formal advice. And, if you do feel you need to speak to somebody, please go and speak to somebody professional with certifications. I'm not saying all therapists know what's right. I think the therapists that I know have a lot of their own experience into their advice that they give out to people. But speak to somebody if you need to. But anyway, my opinion is that when things go wrong, when things aren't working for people, they take two routes to try and resolve that. Some give up. Now, the people that give up are normally the people who, in my opinion, weren't trying very hard in the first place. People who have no persistence to get something, to succeed in something, generally didn't have much commitment in the first place. And I'm sad that there are people like that. And it's fine. But don't give up and then criticize what you were trying to achieve, because actually it's not necessarily that something was impossible. For example, Tough Mudder is a 20-kilometer assault course in the UK. If you can't complete it, it doesn't mean it's a bad assault course. It just means that you need to push yourself harder, or it was too much for you physically, mentally. But it doesn't make the concept of Tough Mudder a bad one. I think that's a fairly good comparison. Then there's the people who don't give up, the people who try a different approach. So I can't get over that mountain. I can't get over that obstacle. I'll try a different way, because if I keep jumping at it like a dog, I'm not going to get over it. But if I'm a cat, I'll go around it, or go, climb a different way, or I'll get help from somebody. That's the difference between dogs and cats. If you keep crashing your car, you're going to start driving differently, right? It's a similar sort of thing. So what I found is that when I replied to some of these negative, horrible, toxic people, they just gave me toxicity and anger back at me. They're the people who give up, who've given up, and they're not going to ever listen to anybody. They never accept that they need to talk to people, that they need help, perhaps. They blame everybody else in life. So that's really sad. I feel sorry for them. But if you are willing to listen and try something different, then I think never try and change your character. Never try and change you, your person. Don't be fake. I'm suggesting that you just change your approach. And here's some ideas. So don't focus on one gender. Focus on both. Don't look at gender. If you see somebody who looks friendly or approachable, or someone who you want to strike conversation with, just do it. Don't have this preconceived idea that men will assault you or want to sleep with you. Or if you're a man, don't approach it if you're going to speak to a girl, don't approach it in a pervy way, like, you're trying to chat them up. Just be you, just be normal and relax and, chill. The other thing is to read people better. Read their body language, read their nonverbal communication, read their responses to you, analyze their attention to you. So if we talk about body language, read whether they look uncomfortable when you're speaking to them. Read if their body language is opening or closed. I've studied nonverbal communication, and it's a real key thing to understanding whether people want to engage with you or not. The verbal responses to you, if they're just replying yeah, nay, or yes or no, and not giving anything back, then that pretty much says that they're not interested. You can either then not try harder, but try and engage them a little bit without pushing them, or just turn around and carry on, say, okay, nice to speak to you, thank you. And also their attention. If they're not making eye contact with you, or if they don't look interested, then again, it's a sign that they're not there. They're not in the moment with you, and don't worry about it. Just try someone else next time. The other thing is to outwardly present an approachable appearance. So, if I come up to you in a bar and I go, hello, that might be a bit scary. So instead, just be smiley. What do they say? You smile with your eyes. Just be approachable. And I know that some people struggle with that, and they'll be a bit like, hello. That's not. I know that people are just like that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't ease into a new conversation very well if you are like that. So push yourself a little bit out of the comfort zone, perhaps, and be a little bit adventurous. I don't know. Think about the conversation as well afterwards. So whether it worked or whether it didn't work, think about it and remember it. That's really important. Now, there are times when sometimes you're just trying to befriend the wrong person. There are people out there who are not particularly pleasant. Perhaps it's these toxic people we talked about earlier. But in that case, that's not your fault. It's never your fault. And people are different. Sometimes you can't put a round peg through a square hole. Peg? Round ball. And sometimes it's just not your fault. It's just the way people are. All right? Don't worry about it. It's not your fault. So just move on, But ultimately, it's about pushing yourself out of the comfort zone. So here's some ideas to take those solutions that I think could help you to make friends and engage. So one of them is to go to a local cafe, a local restaurant, a local bar on your own, and just sit and watch the world go by. Get a drink, a cup of coffee, a beer, a water, whatever suits, and just watch the world go by. Don't have a face on you that looks like you're, spying Inspector Clouseau, but just sit, and if people make eye contact with you, just gentle smile, just to show that you're approachable and that you're a human, that can really, really work. It also helps watch how people in Sweden integrate and associate and communicate with each other, watch their body language. And, that can really help. Now, if you see somebody that looks personable and friendly, why not pluck up the courage to just say hello? And you can start by, what I tend to do. I normally have a genuine question, like I'm somewhere new and I want to know where is there a nice cafe? So I'll stop someone in the street, or I want to know where there's a shop or the nearest, something. So just say, ursäkta mig, kan du tala engelska? Which means, excuse me, can you speak English? That's ursäkta mig, kan du tala engelska? Or you can just say, excuse me, do you speak English? That nobody minds. They'll go, oh, an English person, that's fun. Or they'll say, oh, they speak English, this is exciting. So, and then just ask the question. Just be calm, speak slowly, because you don't know their English capabilities at that point. Don't be too much, don't be in their face, hey, can I help you? Just relax and be calm and just say, hey, I'm new to the area. Do you know where there's a really nice cafe where I can get a nice coffee or a nice pizza or something? And engage in that conversation. Don't ask them out immediately. Don't ask for their number immediately, but use that as an icebreaker to then get into a conversation and chat with them, read their body language, read whether they're in a rush, they want to be somewhere, read whether they're embracing this conversation or not. So important not to just focus on what you're saying, but to focus on the engagement, focus on what you're getting back or not getting back, and use that to judge whether you cut this one short or you carry on and maybe, hey, do you want to go out for a beer sometime? I'm new to the area, you look cool. Respect their personal space, especially in COVID times. Don't get right in their face. There is this stereotype that Swedes like their own space. And yeah, from my experience, some of the Swedes are like that. But some of my Swedish friends are the best huggers ever. So it just depends on the person, but just respect it, Now, join some local clubs. I've made a great bunch of Swedish friends from joining a running club locally. It's COVID friendly. We all run, meters apart, but we laugh, we talk the entire run. And generally, these guys and girls, mainly girls actually, I really, really do classify as really close friends now. I chat to them all the time. They are brilliant. They've helped me so much over the last 6 months with, moving to a new area, moving to a new house. And it's really, really helped me. So join some local running clubs, or if you don't like running, a walking club, because you're out there, you're outside, you're not in a room in an awkward, outdoors, it is easier, I think, to make friends. The other thing is, get involved in some interest groups locally. If you like knitting or trains or yoga or drones or anything, join some local interest groups of local language, not expats or immigrant groups. Get involved in the Swedish groups. Facebook translates most Swedish posts for you, but you can also try and learn some Swedish. You can reply to posts in English. People really don't mind. It's not an issue because it will translate it for them, but they can all read English generally anyway. That's a great way to get involved in some meetups. I fly paramotors and paragliders, and I meet up with my new Swedish friends, about 6 of them, guys in the field just down the road where I didn't even know they were flying. Again, and I can go for beers with these guys as well. Great opportunity. So interest groups are key. But whatever you do, don't expect to be best buddies the first time you meet people. And it's really important to think that, relationships evolve, friendships take time. So just get that initial spark and then take it slowly. Don't rush, because, people are a little bit more relaxed here in terms of meeting new people. They're not antisocial as some of these trolls would lead you to believe, but things do run a bit slower here. So just keep that in mind. They're my solutions. They're that's my offering for you guys. But ultimately, these people in these groups, don't let them troll you. Don't let them bring you down, drag you down. Try and engage with them if you want. But if all else fails, block them. And I really, really mean that, because ultimately, I call it an idiot filter, the blocking on Facebook. Because as you block more and more of these negative influences, these groups become much more pleasant to be in, because you don't see those negative self-promoting posts where people just simply want attention, not because they really need to speak to people, but because they want to drag other people down with them. And I don't give up. I try to help these people, but they're not the sort of people that think they need help, and they don't appreciate your help. So don't waste your effort. Just block them. Wow, we've been 33 minutes. This is the longest video I've ever recorded, but I really hope it's been useful. And I wish everybody luck. If you can't make friends in Sweden, then just have a bit of self-reflection. You may not think you're doing anything wrong, and you may not be doing anything wrong, but you just need to try and do things differently. That's all. A different approach, because this isn't your origin country, and things are different here. Not in a negative way. They're just different. And if anybody's in this area, by the way, I'm in Skåne, as they say down here in Sweden. And if anyone's in this area, in the south, comment, and genuinely, let's go for a beer. Let's just do it. We'll go and meet some Swedes. We'll go and talk to some Swedes. We'll make some Swedish friends whilst we're out having a beer, and I'll show you how. Because I talk to everybody, because I feel that I'm quite personable. I've been working with Swedes for 8 years in my professional life, and I've made friends with Swedes from day one of working with them. So, this is not just about time, it's about your approach. Comment below with your thoughts about this. Honestly, I really want to hear whether you think I'm, being unfair here, but think before you comment. I don't want trolls on this video. There's enough of them in the Facebook groups. Give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you appreciate this. And I'll tell you what, we'll also do a live stream and invite you lot into it very, very soon. Cheers, guys.